I only stopped because someone online posted an urgent plea for a rare blood type. It took less than 30 minutes, one donation, and a quiet thank you from the older man in the next chair before I went back to my normal life. Before leaving, he smiled, asked my name, and disappeared without another word. I never even learned his. 2 weeks later, my commander ordered me to report to headquarters immediately. When I stepped inside, every senior officer stood at attention. Then I looked toward the front of the room and recognized the man whose life I'd unknowingly helped save. People like to believe life changes because of huge decisions. In my experience, it usually changes because of small ones. Mine changed because I looked at my phone while drinking coffee on a quiet Saturday morning. I was a 29-year-old Army medic stationed at Fort Campbell. My job was simple: keep people alive, stay calm under pressure, and never expect applause for doing what needed to be done. After 8 years in uniform, that mindset had become second nature. I had planned to spend the day visiting my younger sister before her college graduation. I was already halfway out the door when a notification appeared on my screen. Urgent. Rare O-negative donor needed immediately. Military Medical Center. Emergency surgery. Time critical. Normally, I scrolled past posts like that, assuming someone closer would respond. But something about this one stopped me. Maybe it was the desperate wording. Maybe it was knowing how precious every minute becomes inside an operating room. Whatever the reason, I grabbed my keys, texted my sister that I'd be running late, and headed for the hospital. The waiting room felt unusually tense. Nurses hurried between doors while families sat silently, staring at the floor or whispering hopeful prayers. After confirming my blood type, the staff quickly escorted me to the donor wing. As I settled into the reclining chair, I noticed another patient resting beside me. He looked to be in his late 60s, pale but composed, wearing plain hospital clothes instead of a military uniform. His silver hair was neatly combed, and despite the exhaustion on his face, his eyes carried an unusual calm. Neither of us spoke while the donation began. About 30 minutes later, the nurse removed the needle and thanked me for coming so quickly. Before I stood to leave, the older man slowly turned toward me. "I heard what you did," he said with a warm smile. "Thank you." "It wasn't a big deal," I replied honestly. "Anyone would have done the same." He chuckled softly, as if he knew something I didn't. "Not everyone would." Then he extended his hand. "What's your name, soldier?" I told him. He repeated it carefully, almost committing it to memory, then gave me a respectful nod. As I walked toward the exit, I noticed several hospital staff quietly greeting him with unmistakable respect. I assumed he was probably a decorated veteran and thought nothing more about it. 2 weeks later, my commander called unexpectedly. "Report to headquarters at 0800 sharp." No explanation. No details. Just an order that instantly told me something extraordinary was waiting. Monday morning arrived with the kind of silence that usually came before inspections. I parked outside headquarters 10 minutes early, pressed my uniform flat one last time, and walked toward the entrance, trying to guess why I had been summoned. Had I missed paperwork? Was I being reassigned? Every possibility crossed my mind except the truth. The first clue that something was unusual came at the security checkpoint. Instead of the familiar guards joking with one another, everyone stood perfectly straight. A captain checked my identification personally before pointing me toward the main conference wing without saying a word. As I walked down the hallway, I noticed officers I had only seen during official ceremonies. Colonels, lieutenant colonels, even a brigadier general stood outside the conference room speaking quietly with my commander. The moment they noticed me, the conversation stopped. My commander stepped forward. "You're right on time. Go inside." My heartbeat quickened. I pushed open the heavy wooden doors. Nearly every seat around the long conference table was filled with senior officers. Medals reflected the morning sunlight pouring through the windows. For a second, I wondered if I had entered the wrong room. Then I saw him. The older man from the hospital slowly stood from the head of the table. Except this time, he wasn't wearing a hospital gown. He wore an immaculate army dress uniform. For silver stars rested on his shoulders. The room felt like it had frozen around me. Before I could even salute, he smiled with quiet recognition. Specialist Carter, he said. I'm glad you could make it. He remembered my name perfectly. I snapped to attention, still struggling to process what I was seeing. At ease, he said kindly. The general walked toward me until we stood only a few feet apart. 2 weeks ago, he began, looking around the room. This soldier answered an emergency request without asking who needed help, what rank they held, or whether anyone would ever know. His voice remained calm, yet every officer listened without moving. My surgery could not begin until compatible blood arrived. His donation gave my medical team the time they needed. A quiet silence settled over the room. I finally found my voice. Sir, I was only doing what anyone should do. The general smiled. No, he replied. You did what character tells a person to do, not what recognition rewards. Several officers exchanged respectful glances. I could feel every eye in the room on me, yet none of it felt uncomfortable anymore. Then the general turned toward my commander. I have one more request, he said. The entire room leaned forward. Whatever he was about to say next would change my military career forever. The general looked around the room before speaking again. I've spent more than 35 years wearing this uniform, he said. I've seen extraordinary courage on battlefields, during disasters, and in places most people will never know existed. But I've also learned that real character usually reveals itself in quiet moments, when no one is watching and nothing is expected in return. The room remained completely silent. He turned back toward me. Specialist Carter didn't know my name. He didn't know my rank. He didn't know the patient needing blood happened to be a 4-star general. He simply saw another human being who needed help. I felt every pair of eyes in the room shift toward me. The general reached into a small presentation box resting on the table and removed a beautifully polished challenge coin engraved with the Army crest. I don't hand these out often, he said. They are reserved for people whose actions remind others what service truly means. He placed the coin in my hand before offering a firm handshake. Thank you for saving my life. For a moment, I couldn't find the right words. Sir, I finally managed. I only did what I hoped someone would do for my family if they ever faced the same situation. His smile grew wider. And that's exactly why this recognition matters. The room erupted into warm applause. My commander stepped beside us. I've watched Specialist Carter for years, he said proudly. Reliable, humble, never chasing attention. Today proves something I've always believed. Integrity isn't measured by medals or promotions. It's measured by the choices people make when no reward is guaranteed. Hearing those words meant more to me than I expected. When the meeting ended, several senior officers stopped to shake my hand. Some shared stories of strangers who had once helped them during difficult moments. Others simply thanked me for reminding them why they first chose to serve. Walking out of headquarters, I slipped the challenge coin into my pocket and realized the blood donation had taken less than an hour. Yet that single hour had connected two complete strangers in a way neither of us could have predicted. A few weeks later, another urgent request for blood donors appeared on the Military Volunteer Network. This time, I didn't hesitate for even a second. As I rolled up my sleeve again, I smiled quietly to myself. Not because I expected another ceremony, not because I hoped to meet someone important, but because I had learned something far greater. You never know whose life you're touching when you choose kindness. And sometimes, the greatest honor isn't being recognized. It's knowing you answered the call when someone needed you most.